Good morning. Thanks for joining me for this hour-long, simple, and relaxing yoga class. I'll ask you to start by coming down onto your back on the mat and just completely relaxing. Close your eyes. Take up as much space as you need. Let your limbs just become very heavy, and see if you can imagine yourself just melting into the mat. Once you're nice and relaxed, you can begin to focus on your breathing. Take a nice, deep, long inhale in. Hold it for a moment at the top, and then fully exhale it out, letting any residual tension in your body go with it. And again, take another deep, long inhale in, filling the lungs, filling the belly. Hold it for a moment at the top, and then sigh it out. Just completely letting go of anything you might be holding on to. Clear your mind. Don't worry about what's ahead in your day. You've carved out this time for yourself on your mat. So just let me guide you through this practice. When you're feeling ready, you can roll over on to your right side, pausing there for a moment before coming up to sit at the top of your mat. When you come up to sit, take a easy seat or a cross-legged position at the top of your mat and sit up really straight from your tailbone all the way up your spine. Your chest is nice and broad and your shoulder blades are down and away from your ears. We're going to inhale our arms up overhead. The palms come to touch and we're looking up at our thumbs for just a moment. And then you're going to lower the right hand down to the floor and extend over to the right. You're going to walk that right hand out and stretch long. The left side of your body is going to be getting very long. And as you breathe deeply, you can feel the ribs coming apart, knitting back together with each inhale and exhale. And then come back up to center, palms press overhead, looking up, and then bringing the left hand down to the side, walking it out, and really stretching through the right side body. You're still maintaining length here. You're looking to get long, not slump over to the side. And again, inhale deep into the ribs, feeling them stretch apart, and then knit back together as you exhale. 2 more deep breaths. And then bring your hands back up overhead, palms press, left hand comes to the right knee. Right hand comes directly behind your spine. You're going to inhale to get tall and then exhale to twist to the right. See if you can use your exhale to twist a little more deeply. Inhale, hands reach overhead, palms press. And then exhale this time, the right hand comes to the left knee. Left hand is an extension of your spine. Inhale to get tall. Exhale to twist to the left. And come back to center. This time we're going to walk our hands forward over our legs and come into a forward fold. My right leg is forward, so I'm going to begin to feel my right hip open up as I do this. For you, it might be the left leg that's forward, but just notice how that hip begins to open. And I walk my hands back so I'm sitting upright. I'm going to sit back on my tailbones and I'm going to bring my shins parallel to the floor so I come into a balancing boat pose. I'm going to challenge myself by bringing my arms up in front of me, but you can leave your hands down on the mat if you wish. And just stay here for a moment to challenge your balance. If you really want to challenge yourself, then straighten your legs. And then I'm going to recross my legs the other way, so left leg forward this time. I'm going to come up, sit up straight before I begin to walk forward over my legs. And because my left leg is in front, I'll feel the left side of my hip opening in this position. And just let my head hang heavy. It's very relaxed. I walk my hands back to center. I'm going to come into a tabletop position. So I'm going to arrange myself so that my wrists are directly below my shoulders and my knees are directly below my hips. And my abdomen is drawn in to eliminate the curve in my lower back, so I have a very neutral spine here. My feet, tops of my feet are flat against the mat. I'm going to inhale, drop my belly, raise my hips, and look up for cow. And then I'm going to exhale, push up between my shoulder blades, and drop my hips and head for cat. Inhale, drop the belly, raise the hips and head for cow. Exhale, push up between the shoulder blades, drop the hips and head for cat. Inhale for cow. Exhale for cat. I'll ask you to take 3 more rounds of cat and cow with your own breath. And if there's any lateral movement that you want to add in, wiggling the hips from side to side or leaning into the shoulders, then go ahead and add that in. When I finish my third round of cat and cow, I'm going to come back to a neutral spine. From here, I'm going to do thread the needle. So I'm going to sweep my right arm up towards the ceiling and look up at it. Exhale, I'm going to thread it underneath my left arm and look towards the opposite wall. Inhale, I'm going to sweep my arm up, look up at it. Exhale, thread it underneath my left arm. One more time. Inhale, sweep and look up. Exhale, thread it through. This time I'm going to bring my right shoulder and the right side of my face down to the mat. And if I'm happy with that, if I want a little bit more, I'm going to walk my left hand up above my head. I'm going to walk my left hand back below my left shoulder and then push back up to my tabletop position. So I'll set up for the other side now. So I'm going to inhale, sweep the left arm up to the ceiling and look up. Exhale, thread it underneath the right arm. Inhale, sweep the left arm up. Exhale, thread it underneath the right. Inhale, sweep the left arm up. Exhale, thread it through underneath the right. This time I'm going to bring my left shoulder and left side of my face down to the mat. And again, I can stay here, or if I want to take a little bit more, I can walk my right hand up above my head. I'm going to walk my right hand back in under my shoulder and push back up to my neutral tabletop position. For this next one, puppy dog pose, I'm going to leave my knees where they are, and I'm just going to walk my hands forward so that I begin to lower my chest towards the ground, and maybe it comes part of the way. Or maybe I can get my chest right down and even lower my chin onto the mat. Either way, I'm going to stay here for a few breaths and just work on opening my chest. Slowly I rise back up and walk my hands back underneath my shoulders. I'm going to spread my knees a little bit apart on the mat, sit my heels back, and bring my forehead down to the mat. My hands are long in front of me, but they could be back beside my hips. And I'm just going to take a brief child's pose. Focus in on my breathing again. Make sure that it's long and steady and even, and has the strength to carry me through my practice. Remember, you are always more than welcome to come back to child's pose at any point during your practice, should you feel the need to regain your breath and slow it down. From my child's pose, I'm going to make sure my hands are out in front of me. Strong fingers pressing down into the mat, particularly under the mounds of the fingers, which are at the base of each finger. My hands are really engaged. I'm going to turn my toes under, lift my hips up, and push up and back to my downward facing dog. I'm leaving a generous bend in my knees here because this is my first downward facing dog of the day, and I want to be gentle with my body. Slowly, I'm going to begin to pedal my legs out, straightening one leg at a time, and just enjoying the stretch as I shift back and forth from leg to leg. I'm not rushing here at all. I'm really taking this slowly and enjoying the sensation. If you like, you can lift your legs up on the mat behind you to three-legged dog and maybe take a stretch from there. Whatever you do, just begin to let your body warm and open in preparation for your practice. And once I'm feeling a little more warmed up, I might just begin to press my heels gently towards the floor, and maybe they come part of the way, or maybe they're still a long ways off, but I'm just gently encouraging them. My hands are still really strong, and my head is completely relaxed between my shoulders, pushing my hips up in the air. I'm going to take 2 deep breaths here. And at the end of my second exhale, I'm going to bend my knees really deeply and walk my hands towards my feet at the top of the mat. So here we go. Deep bend in the knees and walk the feet towards the hands. So I'm coming into a forward fold. From here I can cradle my arms one in the other, or if I'd like a little bit more, I can bring my hands to the back of my head. My hands are clasped and they're just really slightly dragging my head down, providing some traction, letting gravity do some pleasurable stretching of my spine. And since I'm a rag doll, I'm going to sway in the breeze a little bit too and just really gently rock back and forth. Let those hamstrings awaken. And come back to center. I'm going to make sure there's a gentle bend in my knees, and then slowly I'm going to roll all the way up to standing, feeling each vertebra articulate and straighten itself as I stack my spine over my hips. Finally, I come up to stand at the top of my mat. I'm going to take Tadasana, or mountain pose. So my feet are slightly, a narrow hip width apart. I'm standing up. There's a slight bend in my knees. My tailbone is tucked under. My chest is broad. And my shoulders are down away from my ears. Palms turned forward. I'm going to begin a series of sun salutations. I'm going to inhale, arms sweep up overhead. Palms press. Exhale, fold forward all the way down to the mat. Inhale, halfway rise. Exhale, hands down to the mat. Feet come all the way to the back of the mat and knees lower, untucking the toes. Inhale here. Exhale all the way down to the mat. Forehead comes down. Inhale, Raise the head, neck, and chest for cobra. No pressure on the hands. And exhale down. Let's take 2 more cobra. Inhale, head, neck, and chest come up. Exhale, forehead down. Inhale, rise up for cobra. Exhale, forehead down. I'm going to turn my toes under, push up to my knee push up, and then hips come up and back for downward facing dog. I'm going to spread my hands and make sure my fingers are really engaged and powerful. I'm pushing my hips up towards the ceiling. I'm going to bend my knees deeply here and imagine I could bring my chest all the way back to my knees just for a stretch in my downward facing dog. And then I'll relax that and come back to my natural downward facing dog. 2 more deep breaths here. At the end of my second exhale, I'm going to bend my knees deeply and slowly step or walk my feet to the top of the mat into forward fold. Halfway rise up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, roll all the way up to standing. Arms sweep overhead. Palms press. And then hands come down to heart center. Let's do that again. Inhale, arms sweep overhead. Palms press. Exhale, forward fold all the way down. Inhale, rise way up for exhale, hands come down. Feet come to the back of the mat and then knees lower. Make sure you have a nice long diagonal between your shoulders and your hips. Toes are untucked. Take an inhale here. Exhale all the way down to the mat, forehead down. Inhale, rise up for cobra. Exhale, forehead down. Toes turn under. Push up to my knees. And then up and back to downward facing dog. Breathing deeply. I'm going to go into a variation from here. So from my downward facing dog, I'm going to inhale my right leg up to hip height behind me. Doesn't have to go too high, just to hip height. I'm going to exhale and squeeze my right knee into my chest and come forward to plank. And I'm going to bring my right foot just to the outside of my right hand. If I need to walk it forward, I'll walk it forward. Once you're positioned here, you can just slightly step your left foot in and put it on a 45-degree angle. So your toes are pointing diagonally towards the top left corner of your mat. Make sure your feet are on 2 separate tracks to give you a little bit of stability in your stance. Your hands are down and you're inhaling to prepare. Exhale, come up to stand. Make sure your hips are squared to the front of the room. You're going to lunge deeply into your front leg. And when you're comfortable, you're going to inhale your arms up overhead, palms press. And if you're feeling stable here, challenge yourself to look up at your hands. Warrior 1. Breathing deeply. Make sure your feet are really rooted down, pressing in 2 separate directions. So you have the maximum strength and traction from your base. One more deep breath in. Exhale, bring both hands down to the inside of your right foot. Leave your footing as it is. You're going to walk your hands out to the left top diagonal corner of your mat. Your face is not going with it. Your upper body is going to stay over your hips, but your hands are going to go for a walk and your arms are really going to extend out, and you're going to bow down between your arms. Humble warrior. Just let your neck really relax here in this pose. And breathe deeply. Really strengthening for the thighs, really beneficial for the hips. Just stay with it with your breath. Walk your hands back underneath your face. Turn onto your left toes and bring your right foot back to meet your left. You can either come back to your downward facing dog, or if you need a rest, bring your knees down to the mat, hips back on your heels, and take a brief child's pose. If you've taken child's pose, when you're ready, we'll meet back up in downward facing dog. So once you're back in your downward facing dog, this time we're going to inhale the left leg up to hip height behind us. Exhale, squeeze the left knee into your chest and come forward into a plank. Move your left foot to the outside of your left hand and place it on the mat. Walk it forward if you need to. Once you're in position, step your back foot in just a little bit and turn it on a 45-degree diagonal. So this time your right toes are pointing towards the top right corner of your mat. Make sure your feet are really grounded down into the mat and that you have space between them as if they're on two separate tracks so that you have lots of stability. We're going to inhale to prepare and exhale to come up. Again, make sure your hips are squared to the front of the room. You're going to really lunge down into the front thigh. And then we're going to inhale the arms up overhead. Palms press. If this is feeling stable, challenge yourself by looking up towards your thumbs for warrior one. And exhale your hands all the way down to the mat on the inside of your left foot, You're going to leave your torso exactly where it is. Just walk your hands towards the top right corner of your mat. Bow down between your shoulder blades. Really let your neck hang heavy. If you feel that thigh burning, just breathe into it. You can walk your hands back underneath your face. Turn onto the toes of your right foot. And bring your left foot back to your right. You can either set up for your downward facing dog, or again, take another brief child's pose. Once you're ready, we'll all meet up in child's pose, downward facing dog. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, bend your knees deeply and walk your feet towards your hands at the front of the mat to come into a forward fold. From your forward fold, you're going to leave your hands on the mat in front of you. Maybe move them out slightly under your face and come onto your fingertips. Bend both knees moderately. You're going to inhale the right leg up behind you, and as you do, straighten both legs. So it's like you're using your right leg to make a giant T out of your body. You can stay here exactly as you are. If you'd like to challenge yourself, see if you can bring your hands up off the mat and begin to balance in this giant T. And if your hands are anywhere else, bring them back to the mat. We're really going to bend the left leg and bring the right foot all the way to the back of the mat. So you're coming into a runner's lunge position. If you want some extra comfort for your knee, you can take your mat and flip it over underneath where your right knee will land. You can then bring your right knee down to the mat and untuck your toes. Your left foot, you want to make sure that your left foot is underneath your left knee, that it's not way back by your hip. So if you need to bring that foot further forward, do. If anything, you want the ankle out in front of the knee. From here, you can walk your hands a little bit forward and to begin to lower your hips towards the ground. If you would like, you can grab your block and put it under your hands. If you'd like to come further forward into full lizard, move your left foot out onto a diagonal and lift your toes for a moment before setting them down on the mat. Both hands are going to be on the inside of your left foot, and you can begin to walk them slightly forward, lowering your torso down towards the ground. And then maybe you can come on to the forearms to bow down on the inside of that left knee. If that's too much for you, and come back up onto your hands, maybe with the assistance of your block. Maybe you can put your forearms on the block. Whichever variation you take, make sure you can comfortably settle into sensation and just breathe. 2 more breaths. Come back up onto your hands, and you can bring your left leg around to the back of the mat to meet your right, and take a brief child's pose here. When you're ready, we'll meet back up in downward facing dog. So once you're in downward facing dog, take 2 deep cleansing breaths. On your second exhale, bend your knees deeply and walk your feet to the top of the mat so you come into forward fold. Again, you're going to leave your hands down on the mat. Your knees are both slightly bent. Inhale this time the left leg up behind you and straighten both legs as you lift it up. So you come into a giant T position. You can stay here, balancing like this, but if you'd like an additional challenge, see if you can bring your hands up off the mat to heart center. And if your hands are anywhere else, bring them back down to the mat. Leaving your body in that T shape, really, really bend the right leg and step your left foot all the way to the back of your mat. You're coming into a high runner's lunge here. Again, you can fold over the side of your mat if you would like some cushioning underneath where your left knee is going to go. Otherwise, you can set your left knee down and untuck your toes. Make sure that right foot is far enough forward that your knee is not out over your ankle. If anything, it's behind your ankle. Bring both hands to the inside of your right foot. And we'll just start by gently letting the hips sink forward. If you would like to keep going and coming into a more full expression of lizard, you're going to turn your right foot out on a diagonal and lift your right toes for a moment before setting them back down on the mat. Here you can use a block and bring your forearms down on a block, or come down onto your forearms on the mat, or you can stay exactly where you are on your hands, just letting those hips sink forward. Wherever you come to, just aim to stay there in stillness and sensation, and just breathe deeply into the sensation. 2 more deep breaths. You can come back up onto your hands, walk them back a bit. Bring that right foot back to meet the left. And again, come into a brief child's pose. When you're ready, we'll meet back up in downward facing dog. Once you're in your downward facing dog, take a deep inhale, exhale, and bend the knees deeply. Walk your feet towards the top of the mat, coming into a forward fold, and then slowly rolling all the way up to stand. From here, we're going to come into our squat. Something I recommend that you try and do daily if you have time for no other yoga posture. And try and squeeze this one in. So your feet are slightly wider than hip width apart. Your toes are pointing out, roughly a 45-degree angle, and you're standing really tall, broad through the chest, tailbone tucked under, hands come to heart center. Breathe in and get really tall, and then with an exhale, slowly, with control, lower your hips all the way down between your shins. You can bring your hands down to the floor and just shift back and forth a couple of times just to say hello to the hips and to prepare to settle in. Now, if this isn't working for you, there's 2 variations. You could slide a block under your bottom and do your squat from there. Or you can actually sit your bottom back on your mat and do a fully supported squat. So you choose your position. Once you're there, you're going to bring your elbows to the insides of your knees and bring your hands to heart center to provide some gentle pressure and encouragement for the hips to open. And once you're here, try and stay here for at least 10 breaths. Two more breaths. Good, and you can bring your hands down to the mat, and to challenge yourself, try to sit back on your bottom without using your hands. Bring your legs out in front of you into a big V. So we're going to go for a wide-legged forward fold. So we're going to sit up really nice and tall, and you're going to think about going up and forward before going down. And then bring your hands to wherever they rest, and just stay in this forward fold for a few breaths. Walk your hands back in and come up to sitting. Bend your knees, bring your feet to the mat and bring your knees in next to each other. So feet are on the mat, knees are pointed towards the ceiling. Again, inhale, get really tall, and exhale, bring your torso onto your thighs, and then wrap your arms underneath and bow your head forward for a very restorative forward fold. If you'd like to come into a bit more sensation, you can unwrap your arms and begin to extend your legs towards straight, keeping going in your forward fold. And sit back upright. From here, we're gonna keep going all the way back onto our backs. You're gonna, again, bend your knees. So your knees are pointing towards the ceiling. Your feet are on the mat and they're directly behind your hips. So they're really, your feet are quite close to your body. Your hands are down by your hips and they're pressing into the ground. We're going to take a couple of rounds of bridge. So inhale, prepare, and then on an exhale, you're going to push your hips and belly up towards the ceiling. Really strong feet here, really pushing down into the mat. Shoulder blades are plugged into the mat. The harder you push down into the mat, the higher your hips go. Breathing deeply. And exhale and return your hips to the mat. Imagine your legs are windshield wipers and just wipe them back and forth a few times to release the lower back. And then bring them back upright, and we'll go for our second round of bridge. So you can repeat the same action again. If you'd like to add on, after you push your hips up, you can roll your shoulder blades underneath and bind your hands behind your back or clasp your fingers behind your back and then really push up. Strong feet grounding down into the mat. You're really breathing deeply. One more breath, push up, and exhale and release. And again, windshield wiper your legs back and forth to release the lower back. Laying on your back, bring your arms out into a T shape. Cross your right leg over your left so that there's no gap between your thigh. And then gently lower your legs over to the left. If that feels good and both of your shoulder blades are firmly plugged into the mat, you can go ahead and look over your right shoulder. And bring your head back to center if it's not there already. Bring your legs back up. Uncross your legs and then cross the left over the right. No gap between your thighs. And this time gently lower your legs towards the right. If both shoulders are firmly plugged down into the mat and you want something extra, you can go ahead and look over your left shoulder. And bring your knees back upright. Uncross your legs. Hug your knees into your chest, pulling each knee towards its respective armpit. And then if you like, you can reach through your knees and take a hold of the outsides of your feet. Bring your feet towards the ceiling and pulling the knees towards the armpit. Make sure your lower back stays on the mat. And then you can just roll around and give yourself a nice little back massage and happy baby. Once you've taken all the movement that you feel you need, you can recline on your mat, spread out, take as much room as you need. Take a big inhale, hold it for a second at the top, and exhale it out, letting any tension go with it. Coming into your Shavasana, your final resting pose. Close your eyes. Let any tension go from your body. And let your mind go blank. Take a few minutes here in this resting pose to fully absorb all the benefits of your practice. I'll be here for you when it's time to wake up. You can begin to bring awareness back to your breath and back to your body. Again, take in a big cleansing breath. Inflate your belly fully and hold it for a moment at the top before sighing it out. Take any movement that you might desire at this time to begin to wake up from your rest. Maybe stretch overhead or wiggle your fingers and toes. Or if you're not ready to get up, then stay here a little while more, fully absorbing the benefits of your practice. At this point, I will say goodbye and say thank you for practicing with me today. And I hope to see you in real life on the mat very soon. Namaste.